In the peaceful village of Umunachi, the trees swayed like dancers, and the river whispered secrets to those who listened. There lived a young woman named Andidi, praised for her beauty. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany. Her laughter lit up any gathering, and every man in the village wished to make her his bride. But Andidi had one rule. She would only marry a man who could give her everything she wanted. Then came Oena, a well-respected woodworker whose hands could carve magic from tree trunks. He wasn't the most handsome man, nor was he slim like the village warriors. In fact, some would say he was too large, with a round belly and thick arms that moved with effort. But he was kind, gentle, and above all, wealthy from years of honest work. When Oena laid eyes on Andidi during a village festival, he was captivated. He watched her dance with joy, her eyes twinkling like stars. That night, he sent her a basket of gifts, fine fabrics, gold bangles, and the sweetest roasted yams. Andidi, seeing the wealth and imagining a life of comfort, smiled to herself. "A man who can give me all this? Even if he is fat like a water drum, I can endure," she said softly. Their courtship was swift. Oena, ever the romantic, believed he had found his soulmate. He built her a fine house with a flower garden. The villagers gathered for their wedding, singing songs of love and blessing. But behind her veil, Andidi's smile was shallow. She was marrying him for the life he could provide, not for who he truly was. Their wedding night was quiet. Oena, full of hope, lit scented candles and laid soft cloth on the bed. He turned to Andidi with gentle eyes and open arms, but she turned away. "I'm tired," she said. "It's been a long day." Oena nodded, though his heart sank. He told himself it was only the stress of the wedding. Things would be better in the morning, but the morning came, and Andidi avoided his touch again. Days turned into weeks. Andidi remained distant, only showing warmth when Oena brought her gifts: necklaces, sandals, even a gold mirror imported from across the river. She would smile then, call him "my sweet husband," and kiss his cheek. But never more than that. One night, as Oena sat on the veranda watching the moon, he overheard Andidi speaking to her friend Amara through the window. "I cannot believe I married that fat man," Andidi whispered. "He huffs like a tired goat just from walking. To the gate. His belly enters the room before he does." Amara giggled. "But he's rich. At least you have comfort." "That's the only reason I'm here," Andidi said coldly. Obena's heart cracked in silence. He rose slowly and returned to bed, pretending to be asleep when Andidi joined him. That night, sleep refused to come. Oena stared at the ceiling, asking the stars a question that stabbed at his soul. Is my size so great a curse that it blinds her to my love? The village still saw them as the perfect couple, but inside their home, love sat in silence, and one heartbeat alone. Days passed, then weeks, but the warmth Andidi had shown before marriage never returned. She moved through their home like a stranger, her voice soft only when she needed something, her smile reserved for visitors. To the outside world, she was a dutiful wife, but when the doors closed, her true feelings began to show. Oena noticed the change. He would rise early to prepare her favorite breakfast, mashed plantains with pepper sauce, but she would barely eat. "This food is too oily," she would complain. "You know I like lighter meals. No wonder you're the way you are, Oena." Her words stung, but he said nothing. He only nodded and quietly cleared the plates. One evening, Oena brought home a handcrafted jewelry box he had carved himself. Inside was a gold chain with her initials. He had spent weeks working on it, carefully shaping every detail. Andidi opened the box, stared at it, and sighed. "Oena, can you not see I prefer foreign jewelry? This looks like something from the village market." Obena's face fell. He tried to smile, hoping she might soften, but her eyes were already elsewhere. That night, as he sat alone in the courtyard, Mama Ijoma, their elderly neighbor, came to sit beside him. Her eyes, wise from years of watching people, studied his face. "You look troubled, my son," she said gently. Oena hesitated. "Maybe I'm just tired, Mama." She reached over and touched his hand. "Tired from loving someone who refuses to see your worth?" Oena turned his eyes to the stars, saying nothing. In the days that followed, Andidi grew bolder. She would insult Oena in the kitchen, scoffing at how he breathed too loudly. Once, during a walk through the village, she pulled her hand from his and whispered, "Don't hold me like that. People are watching." The villagers began to whisper. They saw how Andidi always walked ahead of her husband, how she rarely looked at him, how her face soured when he spoke too long. Some pitied Oena, others wondered if she had only married him for his wealth. One day, Andidi returned from the market, glowing with excitement. "I saw Ease there," she told Oena, naming her old admirer. "He looks so fit now, strong, like a hunter." Oena forced a smile. "Good for him." Andidi laughed. "You know, sometimes I wonder what life would have been like with someone more energetic." Her words were like a dagger wrapped in silk. Still, Oena said nothing. He only nodded and turned away. But that night, alone in his room, tears fell freely. He had given Andidi everything, his wealth, his time, his heart. Yet it felt like nothing was ever enough. "Maybe," he whispered to himself, "maybe I need to change. But not for her. For me." Meanwhile, Andidi began spending more time away from home. She claimed she was helping her cousin with wedding plans, visiting sick relatives, or shopping for house supplies. But in truth, she was meeting someone from her past, someone who had returned to the village recently, someone who noticed her beauty and didn't have a round belly or rough hands, someone who wasn't Oena. The man from Andidi's past was named Tajuddin. He had once been a poor farmhand in the village, known for his charm and bold smile. But years ago, he left for the city in search of a better life. Now he had returned, not rich but refined. He wore city clothes, spoke with a Lagos accent, and knew exactly how to make Andidi feel wanted. Their first meeting was accidental, or so it seemed. Andidi had gone to buy spices when she heard someone call her name with smooth confidence. "Andidi, is that you? You haven't aged a day?" She turned and gasped. "Tajuddin?" They laughed, hugged like long-lost friends, and shared a meal under the shade of the market tree. Before long, they began meeting regularly, secretly. Andidi told herself it was harmless. But soon, laughter turned to touches, and touches turned to kisses. She began lying to Oena more boldly. "I'm going to help Mama Ijoma prepare for the village women's gathering," she would say, grabbing her bag. Mama Ijoma, of course, had never asked for her help. Oena, still hoping to win his wife's heart, never questioned her movements. He was too trusting, too in love. But his heart began to ache more with each passing day. He noticed she smiled at her phone more than she smiled at him. Her laughter returned, but never in his presence. Mama Ijoma, always observant, called Oena to her compound one afternoon. "My son, you are like my own. I will not stay silent. That woman you married is playing games behind your back." Obena's face paled. "Mama, what do you mean?" "I saw her yesterday, walking behind the yam barn with that city boy, Tajuddin, laughing, her hand on his arm. And this is not the first time." Obena's chest tightened. "Are you sure?" "I have 2 eyes," she said firmly. "I do not lie." Oena thanked her and left, each step heavier than the last. He wanted to deny it, but deep down, something had already broken. That night, he tried to ask gently, "Andidi, who is Tajuddin? I heard you've been seeing him." Andidi froze, then scoffed. "Tajuddin? He's just an old friend. Are you spying? On me now? Don't be insecure. You already look foolish with all that weight. Don't add jealousy to it." Her words sliced through him. Oena lowered his head. "I just wanted the truth." "The truth is," she snapped, "you're not the man I imagined marrying. You may have money, but that's all. You can't even walk to the village square without sweating like a goat." She turned and stormed out, leaving Oena sitting in silence. But something changed in him that night. Not just sorrow, resolve. He stayed up late, thinking about Mama Ijioma's words, thinking about how much of himself he had given, how much of himself he had lost. He looked into the mirror, eyes swollen from tears. For the first time, he said out loud, "If she cannot see my worth, I will remind myself of it. I will rise." And that night, under the quiet stars of Uminachi, Oena made a vow, not to fight for Ndidi's love, but to fight for his own self-respect. The next morning, while Andidi slept peacefully, Oena woke before the sun. The rooster hadn't crowed, the dew still kissed the leaves, and the village was quiet. He stepped outside, took a long breath, and began to walk. Not far, just to the stream and back. But for a man who hadn't done more than lift carving tools for years, even that small journey made his body ache. Still, he returned the next day. And the next. Each time he went a little farther, he told no one, not even Mama Ijoma. This wasn't about making anyone proud. It was about facing himself, about reclaiming the man Andidi had blinded with her coldness. He changed his meals. No more deep-fried plantains. No more thick soups with 3 meats. He boiled his food, drank more water, and cut back on portions. It was hard. His body craved what it had always known. But his will was stronger now. Stronger than the shame. Stronger than the sadness. At first, the changes were small. His trousers loosened at the waist. His breathing steadied. His face, once round like a full moon, began to shape itself again. The mirror no longer reflected a defeated man. It reflected a man in motion. Andidi, however, barely noticed. She was too busy entertaining Tajuddin. He now visited their home during Obena's workshop hours. They drank palm wine, whispered like teenagers, and laughed as if they shared some private joke about Oena. One afternoon, Tajuddin held Ndidi's hands and said, "Why do you still live with that man? Look at you, a queen trapped with a buffalo. Leave him and we can run away to the city." Andidi smiled, but her eyes narrowed. "Not yet. I need more time. His money is still useful." Tajuddin laughed. "Then keep using him. A fool and his wealth are easily parted." What they didn't know was that Oena had started listening, watching. He no longer believed her lies, and his eyes had opened to the truth. The man who once begged for her affection now studied her with quiet detachment. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Andidi reached for his wallet. "I need money to buy fabric for the women's meeting." Oena looked at her. Not with anger, not even sadness. Just calm. "No," he said softly. Didi blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said no," he repeated. "You don't need fabric. You want to impress Tajuddin. But that's not my burden to carry. Anymore." For a moment, Ndidi's face twisted in confusion. Then it turned to rage. "Who do you think you are speaking to me like that? I am your wife." Oena stood up, his tall frame now leaner, his posture firmer. "Yes, you are my wife, but you forgot to be a wife to me. From today, I choose peace. I choose dignity. And I will no longer fund your disrespect." He walked away, leaving her, fuming behind him. That night, Oena didn't cry. He smiled. for the first time in months, he felt free. The days that followed were colder in the house, not because of the Harmattan winds, but because of the silence that settled between Oena and Andidi. She still cooked, still cleaned, but her movements were sharp and loud. Pots slammed on the fire, doors shut with fury. Oena, on the other hand, was calm. He went on his morning walks, ate quietly, and spent his afternoons carving furniture, humming softly to himself. The villagers began to notice his transformation. "Is that Oena?" one man whispered at the market. "He has lost weight. He looks strong," a woman replied, her eyes following him admiringly. Even the youth in the village started approaching him, asking about his routine. Some joined him on his morning walks. Others sought advice. Oena, once the quiet craftsman mocked behind his back, was now seen with fresh respect. Andidi hated it. She hated that her husband, the man she once belittled, was now being praised. She could no longer insult his body or shame his appearance. Her power over him was slipping. Worse, Tajuddin had changed too. He had grown tired of hiding, tired of waiting for Andidi to collect more money. He wanted a quick way out. "I think we should stop," he told her one day under the mango tree. "This isn't what I expected." Ndidi's mouth fell open. "Stop? What are you saying?" "I don't want this game anymore. Your husband knows, I can feel it. He's not a fool, and I won't let this ruin me." "But you said—" "I said a lot of things," Tajuddin cut in. "Truth is, you're not worth the trouble." With that, he walked away, leaving her stunned and speechless. When Andidi returned home that evening, she was seething. She found Oena seated on the veranda, sipping warm millet drink. "You!" she shouted. "You've poisoned everyone against me. You're turning into someone else, thinking you're better than me." Oena didn't flinch. He looked at her steadily. "You did that yourself. Andidi, I only stepped out of your shadow." The next morning, news spread like wildfire. Tajuddin had left the village. He was gone without a goodbye, without a trace. People began whispering. Rumors danced on lips like dust in the wind. They say he was seeing a married woman. Oena's wife, I heard. Yeah, Oena deserved better. Andidi felt the weight of every glance, every whisper. She no longer walked with her head high. Children who once waved at her now looked away. Friends no longer visited. Even Amara, her closest confidant, avoided her like a plague. But the final blow came on market day. Andidi tried to buy onions from Mama Chinwe, but the old woman shook her head. "I don't sell to betrayers," she said coldly. The words hit Andidi like a slap. She turned to leave but found eyes on her from every direction. No one said a word, but their silence shouted louder than any insult. She ran home, heart pounding, pride shattered. When she reached the house, Oena was trimming the hedge. She dropped to her knees in front of him. "Oena, I'm sorry. I made mistakes. I wasn't fair. I let greed blind me. Please, forgive me." He looked at her for a long time, his face unreadable. "I forgive you," he said gently. "But that does not mean I want you in my life. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting." Ndidi's tears fell freely, soaking the dry earth beneath her. She had everything: comfort, wealth, and a man who loved her unconditionally. And now she had nothing. Karma had come, not as thunder or fire, but as quiet regret that would never leave. In the months that followed Ndidi's fall from grace, Oena began to shine brighter than the village moonlight. He no longer carried the weight of rejection or humiliation. He moved with confidence and spoke with purpose. Every morning, before the cock crowed, he jogged to the river and trained with the young men. His body grew leaner, stronger. His eyes, once heavy with sorrow, now gleamed with peace. He expanded his workshop and began teaching village boys how to carve and craft. Some came for skills. Others came just to be near the man who had become a symbol of quiet strength. One of them, a shy teenager named Oena, approached him after class. "Uncle Oena," he said, eyes lowered. "How did you become like this? After everything?" Oena smiled. "Pain has two roads. One leads to destruction. The other leads to transformation. I chose the second." Meanwhile, far from the gossip and regrets, a new presence entered Obena's life. A young nurse named Chiamaka, sent from the city to serve at the village clinic. Chiamaka was calm, kind, and always wore a smile. Unlike Andidi, she did not dress to impress or speak to gain favor. She treated elders with respect and children with tenderness. Their paths first crossed when Oena hurt his hand with a sharp blade. At the clinic, Chiamaka gently wrapped the wound, her touch careful. "You must take better care of yourself," she teased softly. Oena chuckled. "I'm still learning." As the weeks passed, their conversations grew deeper. They would meet by the riverside after work, talking about life, dreams, and healing. Chiamaka saw Oena for who he was, not the man who was once mocked, but the man who rose from ashes with grace. One evening, as they walked under a sky painted with golden sunset, Chiamaka turned to him. "Oena, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course," he replied. "Do you still love her? The one who broke you?" Oena was quiet for a moment. The breeze carried the scent of wildflowers. "No," he said slowly. "I loved her once, deeply. But I realized love must be returned, not begged for. What I gave was wasted. What I have now is what I needed all along. Peace." Chiamaka nodded. "You deserve that peace. And more." Back in the village, Andidi watched from the shadows. She had moved into a small compound at the edge of Umunnachi, away from judging eyes. Her beauty faded, the sparkle she once wore like a crown now dulled by stress and sorrow. But the deepest pain came not from what she lost, but from what she now saw. Oena was truly happy. One morning she saw him walking with Chiamaka. The way he smiled, the way she laughed, the unforced, genuine joy that bloomed between them like new grass after rain. Didi's heart twisted. She had mocked him, betrayed him. And now, someone else reaped the fruit of his transformation. Later that day, Mama Ijoma passed by her compound. She paused, looked at Andidi with tired eyes and said, "You lost gold because you thought it was clay. Now another woman polishes it." Andidi looked down, unable to speak. The truth was heavy, and it crushed her pride. The sun rose brightly over Umunnachi as if to bless the beginning of something beautiful. The village square bustled with excitement. Children raced barefoot across the dust, elders gathered under the palm tree, and women carried pots of jollof and soup toward the open hall. Today was Oena and Chiamaka's wedding day. Dressed in a deep indigo agbada, embroidered with golden thread, Oena stood tall. His once round frame had been replaced with strong shoulders and a firm chest. But, more than his body, it was the peace on his face that made people stare. The man who once walked with a bowed head now moved like a lion, quiet, dignified, and unshaken. Chiamaka arrived in a flowing wine-colored wrapper, her head wrap neatly tied, her smile radiant. When she joined Oena beneath the ceremonial arch, the crowd cheered. The village drummers played and the air vibrated with joy. Mama Ijoma stood near the front, her old hands clapping in rhythm. "God is good," she whispered. "The broken man has been made whole." As the ceremony went on, hidden in the crowd, Andidi watched from afar. She wore a faded wrapper, and her once proud posture had wilted into silence. She hadn't been invited, of course, but she came. She had to. When Chiamaka took Obena's hand, Andidi's heart cracked in places she didn't know existed. She saw the way Oena looked at his bride, with respect, admiration, and genuine love, the very things she once mocked and took for granted. A tear slipped down her cheek. Later that night, while everyone danced and feasted, Andidi sat alone under the baobab tree by the riverbank. The same place she once walked past in pride now became her place of reflection. The stars blinked quietly above, and the crickets sang a lonely tune. "Lost everything," she whispered. "Not because he was fat, but because I was blind." She remembered the way Oena used to look at her, like she was his world, and how she turned that love into shame. She had chased wealth, image, and desire, but all of it crumbled like ash in her hands. Tajuddin had left her. Her friends had vanished. Even her family had grown cold. Now she had nothing. Meanwhile, Oena and Chiamaka shared their first meal as husband and wife under the stars. They laughed, fed each other, and planned a future rooted in kindness and trust. Oena glanced at the stars and smiled, not because he had won, but because he had found peace. He thought of Andidi, not with bitterness, but with calm. "She was a chapter," he said softly, "but not my story." Chiamaka held his hand. "Let's write the rest together," and they did. In the months that followed, Oena and Chiamaka built a clinic and carpentry school together. They taught children about health, hard work, and self-worth. Their home became a place of laughter and warmth. As for Andidi, she remained, in the village, a living lesson to others. She began helping at the church, washing clothes for elders, and living a quiet life. The fire in her had burned her own home, and now she had to rebuild from ashes. One day, a young girl asked her, "Auntie Andidi, why do you always look so sad?" Andidi smiled, touched the child's head, and replied, "Because I once threw away a diamond while chasing stones. Never make that mistake, my child."